Welcome once again to the Finance Forum with myself, Abdu-Raof Hanslo. And in this episode, we have a look in that crystal ball to see exactly what's going to happen in 2017. So this is the start of the year, and I think mostly everyone is very keen to find out exactly what's expected in our economy. But I think before we get into that, we have a very special guest in studio, a regular now on the Finance Forum, Mr. Mohammed Jaffer, who's going to give us some idea and throw some light on the topic of where exactly our economy was in 2016 and what's expected for 2017. Assalamu alaikum to you, Mohammed.
Wa alaikum salam, Abdu-Raof, to you and our beloved viewers. And yes, we are very excited about 2017, and inshallah we hope that 2017 is going to be a better year than 2016.
Yes, now in saying that, we know that 2016 came with its own challenges over the 12 months of that period, and we saw it from the kickoff of 2016 throughout the year, even up to the end of 2016. We saw some major issues that came out of the economy. Mohammed, give us some light on exactly what 2016 was to us in
yes,
economic sense.
And I suppose there will be very few of us that would have forgotten about what happened in December 2015, which obviously was the curtain opener for 2016, the Nenigate. We know that it sent the rand into a spin. The market reacted negatively as well, and which forced the government, this South African Reserve Bank, to hike interest rates, because as we know that the rand went all the way to almost 16, 17 rand. Now that has got a ripple effect, and as we know that Nenigate at the time wiped off billions of rands of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, of which some has been recovered, but in the main we're still negative. That obviously pushed the economy into a tailspin. As we know that interest rates has got an impact on various industries and our pockets ultimately. Those people that has got mortgage bonds, it affects you. And then coupled with that, as you know, that we had the drought that we've been experiencing across the country. At least, alhamdulillah, that is looking positive for this year. The market last year was also negative generally. In fact, it was flat. We're talking about the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. However, we saw a pickup in the resources. And there was a lot of talk that property unit trust was going to be negative, and that gave us a good return also last year. So yes, there's been negatives and there's been positives as well, Abdu-Raof. Going into 2017 is another big question mark, because we don't know. We know who the elephant is in the room, and that is the big question mark for 2017.
I think the stars of 2016, Mohammed, was the Ministry of Finance. Ultimately, we saw two ministers being attacked. Oh, we can basically say three. We had a weekend special in between as well. So with the Ministry of Finance being under attack by unknown forces within the government, basically that threw the entire year into a tailspin, and that caused a tremendous amount of volatility in the market, as you just said.
Yeah, you know, Abdu-Raof, if you look at the first quarter of last year, when we saw the blowout of the rand, and then we saw there was a pullback, it started coming back. And then we had another wobble, because then there was another attack again on Provan Gordon, and we know the saga. That was actually comical to see that he was then slapped with certain cases that were brought against him, that which they eventually had to withdraw. So it's really it's unfortunately people who's got vested interest, and they're doing everything. And to open up the year, and as one of the economists so aptly said, that Zuma has made it quite clear that he's not going to resign. The danger is, though, that he's going to fight to the bitter end, meaning that he could bring down the house with him. And that for 2017 is the big question mark. And as you know, in one of the reports that we were discussing just before we went on air, is that that South Africa is one of the, on the watch list, global watch list of the 10 biggest risks to international markets. So now for us to get to that point, you know, and then about a month ago, a report was released on education. They've surveyed 76 countries in the world on general education, and South Africa came out 75th. Now that's right at the bottom. And then when it comes to maths and science, we are the worst. So these are things that has got long-term effects and impact on the economy and to our general well-being as a populace.
I think you know, we have to also pay due to certain people for last year. We saw a well-rounded budget being presented in February last year, and then we saw a very well-balanced midterm budget that was presented as well in September, October last year as well. And that's all due to the person that was on the watch list to be ousted out of the position, I think the seasoned Finance Minister, Mr. Pravin Gordhan. But that was 2016. So now we've moved past that point. We're sitting now in January of 2017, and according to a few economists and according to a few spectators of the economy, 2017 comes with its own challenges.
Yes, Abdu-Raof. 2017, generally there's a feeling that 2017 should be better than 2016. They're talking of at least a 1% growth in 2017, which is far from where if we want to create jobs, we need to look at a growth of about 6% consistently over a 3-year period. But at least it is, somebody would say it's 100% better than what we achieved last year, because last year we achieved 0.5%. But yet it is still a far cry from where we need to be. The positive indicators are that if things carries on a positive note, we could see interest rate cuts. Worst case, we could see interest rates being held. Right. That is based on if things stay the way it is. But we know that if, for argument's sake, politically things goes high wire, we know that there's a lot of infighting in the ANC. This year they've got in December, they're going to have the well-publicized and the meeting where they're going to decide on the next president. And we know that the politicking has been going on, in fact, last year already. We know that yours truly, number one, is fighting for dear life to hold on to his position for as long as possible. And corruption has corroded our institutions to the core. So with that, and the fact that you've mentioned that we have a star in our midst, even though he's under constant attack, he's proven that he can withstand those type of attacks. And that's Pravin Gordhan.
And just for me to come in there, Mohammed, I mean, last year we saw, was it 1 or 2 downgrades last year? And by December last year, it was expected that we were going to be downgraded to junk status. But it was clearly said straight off that because of the way the minister mitigated that risk to the economy, that's the reason why we weren't downgraded. So that in itself is a clear indication that both Moody's and S&P has the utmost respect for a person of his caliber, Mr. Pravin Gordhan.
Absolutely, Abdu-Raof. And that just shows you how desperate and how reckless Pravin Gordhan's opponents are. That they would, globally he's known for being a brilliant finance minister, and yet he's under attack from certain quarters, which shows you the desperation, you know, of corruption and of gatekeeping. So those things on the side, Abdu-Raof, we've got the other positives we've got the other positives on the other side, that if interest rates stays where they are or they reduce, that will be a shot in the arm for the economy. We know that in many parts of the country that the drought has been broken, which means from an agriculture point of view, we will most probably only see the fruits of that literally only by the end of next year and going forward, because it takes a while to get through the system. But that's positive, you know. It will create jobs. It will also generate income for us. So that's a definite positive for us. And then, as we know, that resources started turning around last year, which is it's a good indicator for us that there is starting to have some pull through. We know that there are in certain quarters they're saying, you know, it's just that people are taking a defensive position, particularly with the risk in South Africa. But be that as it may, we're seeing a pull through happening, and it's good for the country. And also, as we see that last year, the resources ETFs, exchange traded funds, is the top performing funds, which shows that it's coming through, and also obviously being that it's coming off a low base, but there is a turnaround.
Now that's specifically looking at financial perspective from the market perspective, Mohammed. But looking at the consumer in itself, I mean, the effects of any pressurized economy obviously affects various sectors of the marketplace. One of them being employment, the other being consumer spending, and so forth and so on. And the cost of living, the inflation. So we heard that inflation might stay where it is for 2017, but that's conditional. What is that condition, Mohammed?
Well, you know, I think we've talked quite a bit at length of those of the condition. If maybe we can give, number one, a tranquilizer just to keep him sedated for a year. I think it will be a real shot in the arm, not only in his arm, but in the economy and in the country, because that is the real danger to the economy, besides the corruption, because we know we've experienced how reckless he can be.
You tuned into the Finance Forum with myself, Abdu-Raof Hanslo, and my very special guest in studio, Mr. Mohammed Jaffer from Mojaf Financial Services, and we're speaking the outlook for 2017 and the year that's passed. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.